After your last build, was reusable for the next one? Can you diagnose a production failure in under 5 minutes? Does your team share learnings weekly? Is your next decision obvious from the data you're collecting? Are you solving the right problem or just the urgent one? The core goal of this episode is to show how to balance the different aspects of a role of leading and delivering technology that has an impact and generates value consistently. Okay, welcome back. So I'm super excited about today's topic, which is the AI Leaders Playbook. I've prepared a few visuals and also I want to go through that specific post because I think that it resonates a lot with many conversations that I've had and also multiple experiences that I've been able to see or discuss about being more hands-on too around that topic. So AI Leaders Playbook, the reason I care about this topic is because it's all about how do we merge the state of the art of the technology to deliver the most impactful value, and how do I efficiently balance between the strategy of what to prioritize, either internally or for your clients, on the AI strategy versus the actual execution and de-risking that execution. And de-risking execution means making milestones so simple and near term that it's impossible to not reach the target. And so there is balance to it and there is a dance, but let's jump right into today's topic, which is the early stage AI native club series. And so today we're reviewing the AI Leaders Playbook. So you can find the post on Substack and this is what we're going to cover. Turn AI into business value. There is a very cool video that I would recommend, which is the AI engineers, and it's AI consulting in practice from the AI Engineer Code Summit in end of last year in New York. NLW, co-founder and I believe CEO of Superintelligent, gave a very interesting talk on that. On one side of this topic, which I think is relevant, but totally different from what I'm going to outline here. Let's say you're an head of AI, or you're a leader at an organization, or you're just leading a team, or you're part of a team, but you want to play that anyway, or you want to help make the best decisions because you care about your job. All of these are fine. So the core goal and objective of this episode is to show how to balance the different aspects of a role of leading and delivering technology that has an impact and generates value consistently. I think that's one way to put it. Basically, you just don't want to build many MVPs and have no observability, no adoption, no idea of what's going on, no idea of what we're learning and what not. Kind of guessing what could be the next step, and maybe you're lucky, maybe you're not. That's what we want to avoid here. We want to make it stupidly simple to get to be successful and create a compelling direction for the culture, for the organization, and for the mission of the company. That's what we're optimizing for. The AI Leaders Playbook has 3 pillars, which is teach, strategy, and implement. So you want to teach, you want a strategy, and you want the implementation, which has its own things. What do those 3 mean? The leader has those 3 pillars in that sequence. Teaching to help other grow and use the right tool for the right job. I have an analogy here that I want to mention. Strategy is having the best sequence of action to actually then go and execute in the fastest path possible or accessible to the level of the person thinking about the strategy and going about the implementation, either themselves or with a team. And the implementation is actually how do you execute in the way that is consistent to the strategy, self-adapt, but also is bulletproof to anything that can happen in an implementation. So basically from the vision to the actual execution, teaching along the process so that everyone in your company is growing and is adapting to change and is in return teaching others, which creates that loop of motion and change and everyone having more impact. Before diving into my analogy, I want to touch on this one. So on the previous episodes where we were talking about AI native company, the AI employee, the early stage visibility system, and the early stage founder operating system, which are all basically operations and first principles to approach decision making and what's your strategy versus what's your plan to executing on it, and how do you make sure that you self-correct and that you're looking at the right information and signals so that you can take confidently over and over the best decisions. That's the mental model behind this series of AI native club. Also, let me know if you have any questions that I should address. That's also very welcome. On the AI native employee, the rich get richer. This is a Stanford slide where basically this report was outlining that the gap, and this is what also I commented on the previous episode, but without the visual, so I think it's cool to go back to it. So successful early AI adopters might compound their gains while strugglers could fall further behind. The point of this being that the average person before was somewhat not as productive as the top 1%, but maybe was like a 2x difference. By becoming AI native and embracing those tools, not only in having a seat and using the tool well, but also connecting the right tools, building new systems, and having new ways to define the tasks that needs to be executed for the job, then that gap between someone average or under average, I think in that case, is like the bottom quartile, and that's like the top quartile. So between those two quartiles, the gap is increasingly bigger. And so here you can see that from 2025 to 2030, you have like a 10x difference. And so that's a Stanford study, and you can also watch on the AI Engineer channel the talk on that specific topic, which you will like. And another thing that is interesting from NLW, also at the same conference, is that 70% of leaders report facing significant pressure from investors and boards to demonstrate AI value. And so everyone is struggling. And a lot of people would have this framing of, no, I'm not really into this, or it's hard to convert to ROI, or whatever they're saying. I understand. So for those people, here are like a few categories that you can pick for your next use cases to leverage some pieces of AI that you will be successful at. You have like the impact categories, goes into time savings, increased output, quality improvement, new capabilities, risk reduction, increased revenue, cost savings, and improved decision making. That one is maybe one of the underused in my opinion. So coming back to my analogy, teaching and the right strategy and the right implementation. I spent some time in Malaga recently. I think I just went to get a coffee outside. And when I came back in the elevator, I saw someone with packs of waters and groceries. And I know that the nearest shop is quite far. I asked them why didn't they order from Uber Eats or any applications that you can think of, because it costs the same and you don't have to walk to there and come back and do all that heavy lifting. So I think that me ordering from an app and someone going and taking the elevator and carrying all the weights of the waters and the groceries are like two very good examples of strategy. Two different strategies where in one case, the effort and the time allocated is way higher for the same results as the other output, where in my case, not that I'm particularly proud of this specific scenario, but in my case, it was way more efficient because I can redirect that energy allocation into something else. So I had a strategy, which was save time to allocate energy in things that I care a lot about. And then in the way I implement it. So the strategy here is like get food so that I can leave. And the implementation is I order in an app. And this person implementation was I will go to the supermarket and do all that effort. Then I asked him and he was, yeah, right, you're right. And so since then, he never went there because like this is typical to Malaga, but basically it's like very simple for you to do your grocery shopping from Uber Eats. I mean, basically it's simple and it's at the same cost almost. So that's just a very simple example that is definitely not business oriented, but that shows that you can have the goal, which is living and eating food, and a strategy to go about that goal. And so if you repeat that strategy 10,000 times, this person and myself will be in a very different place. And so now you add this AI component where you have this tooling and you can be way more efficient. And so now you're comparing someone that is walking with all their groceries and bottles of waters to someone who is like teletransporting. Finish that analogy for me. But the point being that it's compounding, right? Those are like the three pillars that are the most important. So strategies, implementation, and teaching, because through teaching and showing what great looks like, you make every individual in the organization more hungry. And because they've seen what great looks like, it raises the bar. And by raising the bar, you also raise the potential level of the cumulated strategy as well as the potential level of the cumulated implementation. The example here that I want to give is that you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the skills to implement, you're not going anywhere. And so what does a great implementation look like? You have three components that are very simple. How fast can you implement? I'm not speaking about MVPs. I'm really speaking about having real users on what you've built or what you've proposed to deliver. So that's the speed layer. Then you have reliability. Based on what I've built, if I run the system 10 times, is it going to deliver 10 times out of 10? Now you can scale because with agentic systems, you have like a distribution of outputs that is way bigger. And so because of that, you need to test reliability in different ways. That's where like all the MLOps and LLMOps comes in, and also like best practices of software engineering, solution architecture, and just building solid systems that are reliable. But when you put these solutions in production, you do want the solutions to be reliable most of the time. Then, of course, again, depending on the goals and specific situations, you can go into some nuances. I'll let you do the math for you here. And lastly, the quality, which is even if my system is reliable, how accurate the information is, how useful it is, how much value is the end user getting from this. And when I say end user, it can be the value delivered from many sources or in many ways. I can share a bit more on that in a moment. So you have speed, you have reliability, and you have quality. Those are characteristics of what great looks like for the implementation. You don't have to have all the tools nor being perfect on all of those. You need to understand what's the right amount of speed, reliability, and quality based on your use cases or the product that you're building or the kind of companies and clients that you have, etc., etc. It has nuances based on edge cases. And yes, you need to navigate those edge cases with those principles to know what great looks like for you in your specific context. So that's what an AI leader looks like with those three pillars. Here I kind of outline what are like the accountability metrics around this profile. Let's say you're the head of AI. The core role of the head of AI would be picking winning problems with a clear return on investment, aka ROI, designing solutions that are optimized for speed, reliability, and quality, which we've just outlined. Enforcing a reasoning process across your teams. That's like not micromanaging and enforcing specific solutions and way to do things, but more like enforcing the thinking process of designing solutions fast in a reliable and high quality way. And so what's the problem? Why is it the right problem in the first place? What's the right solution? And like, how do we map it down to a specific tech stack and an execution plan? It's like where the real magic happens, right? You go to all those big fours and consulting companies and agencies. This is all what they do at different levels. I think that something interesting to show here, like tactical stack, if you're closer to the AI engineer team, then you might be looking a lot into models and frameworks and observability and evaluation and dashboards. All of those are core to best engineering practices, and that can be enforcing MLOps, LLMOps. Is basically where is my company at right now and what are the learnings that we need to extract from our interactions selling and talking to users and customers versus where our product and systems and technology is. It is very likely that if you don't have observability and evaluations to some extent, at some point your learning rate will reduce because you will be lacking information to take better bets. Okay, so the see through the hype section here is a way to describe that as an AI leader in an organization, you need to understand very well all the tooling, the latest toolings, potentially have played with those, but more importantly, beside the hype. So like if tomorrow you go back to your C-suite and you say, hey, we all should have OpenClaw up and running, and that's like the new thing, you could, and I think it's an excellent experiment to run and to play with. It doesn't necessarily mean that based on your tech stack, this is the right next step for you. Maybe what you just need to do is to have all your employees have a cloud license and use Cowork and teach them how to use Cowork, because this is something that will get net ROI before end of months because everyone's going to be way more productive leveraging those agents. Or like having a frequency of meetings where everyone is showing what they're doing, what they've learned, how they're more efficient. Those are small details that when you architect systems, they shine and they really see through the hype, which is, yes, there are cool stuff and we all need to be playing with those cool stuff so that we have an idea of what they do. But we also don't want to forget our fundamentals, and that it's not because there is something shiny that just came out that we need to get that one for the job at hand and moving the needle for the company. There are just a few layers, but this is my favorite stack. It's Fast API. long graph, OPIC, Postgres, and Metabase for you to deliver any kind of agentic systems in a backend. And you can put that in an API, a UI, Lovable, an MCP server. The way you deliver your agentic value is something else. But what I like particularly about this stack is not the tool themselves. You can pick any one that you like. It's more about Fast API is async native, and it uses a library that is very efficient to play with nodes and prompts so that I can architect systems and I can see the traces as I build those systems. So because I see those traces, I can run more advanced tests. And because I can do that, I can build a better solution that is more reliable as well as of a higher quality. And then once I put this in production, it's being used. What I really like is that because I'm saving all my information in some kind of Postgres database, either in AWS, which would be RDS, or in GCP, which would be Google Cloud SQL, then I can put a metabase on top of these real data with read access, please. And I can do week over week, month over month visualizations, which allows me to get a sense of the engagement, the usage, if things are failing. I can be very creative, like pulling dashboards out of these using the data from my application. And that is very cool because the more information I want to see here on the dashboards that I create, the easier it is for me to tweak those layers and adding new tables and maybe new information that I want to extract every time something happens. So that gives you, I think, a solid idea of like how you build. And so the principles that don't change here when you architect and deliver those systems. Let's say you're the head of AI. A head of AI do not build lovable apps and do like some kind of agentic actions or like build workflows, etc. At least to me. But a head of AI can definitely do those, but more importantly, work with engineering leaders, technology leaders, so that the solutions that are built on the existing platform or existing tooling are directly connected to ROI and why are we prioritizing this versus something else. And they have full ownership on all the AI layer and all the experimentation to get all that data and convert this into smarter decision making, if that makes sense. So my point being that head of AI is not a title where it's like head of vibe coding. It's more like you understand deeply from infrastructure to deployment to maintaining solutions and the end-to-end architectures and pieces in between. You have strong opinions about how to build things, but also a strong incentive to connect, to teach, to define the strategy, to implement it hand by hand with engineering leaders and other leaders across the organization. So that's the example behind the principles that don't change. You should know when something is wrong. So you should have like some kind of error handling, latency spikes, quality drops to some extent based on where you are and what you're doing. You should be able to revert. So if you've shipped a new agentic system or a new version, you should be able to go back if your new system didn't oversee some important aspects that now are impacting real users in production after your deployment. Just an example. Version everything. So that's the core idea also. Maybe I've shipped a new system, but I want to roll back to a previous prompting piece of my system. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. Test the system before you ship. I won't comment there. Traces are your new logs. You want many kind of logs and traces, especially when working with LLMs and you're doing LLM ops. As you build, you want to see those traces to be methodical about decisions that you take on building those agents / workflow, because this is a spectrum. I can talk about that spectrum later. And so now it's like the biggest mistake that I've personally been seeing in the last 6 months, I would say, which is you ship something and you cannot reuse anything and you are basically shipping, not reusing, not getting learnings, not knowing what's working versus not knowing where you have most usage. It becomes very difficult to map and connect the right dots about what's the next sequence of actions if you're not being methodical about that process. So every build should add observability, makes the next decision easier, and makes the next build easier. I think that this is the core idea behind the AI Leaders Playbook. You basically want to show that you're moving faster, you're shipping more reliably, your output quality is improving, next decisions are obvious from data. So like, for example, metrics that you can report to as you work with your C-suite and other leaders, are you can show the systems in production so you can quantify the scale of your AI footprint. And when I say AI here, it's not just AI. It's like you're shipping technology that is infused with AI, which is every piece of technology that's going to come in the next 10 years. I think it's important to specify here. We're not just like AI this, AI that. It's like we're building some technology piece that solves a specific problem. And of course, it uses AI because it's more efficient. I can see like some people saying, yeah, but sometimes it's not efficient, etc. Yes, you're right. I don't care. You get my point. So the second one is error rate and trends, having observability and bringing those metrics on the week over week, month over month. Are we stable? Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Those are the questions that you reporting to the team should be answered, and they should have a better understanding of how are we actually doing compared to the last month, compared to the last 3 months. Flagging patterns is very important. Active users per system. Are people actually using this? If so, how much? Are they happy when they use it? And so like here, this is where LLM becomes magic, because you can now create processes that extract way more information from your systems than before. So you can then aggregate that easily and classify, etc., etc. Basically, you are building your learning machine. Time saved or revenue attributed. Can you tie it to money? That is highly recommended, not necessarily based on time, but you want to quantify the value that you're generating. So either by having error rate and trends very clear, you can show that you're not leaving any money on the table. You should be able to quantify that by the AI footprint and what's in production versus not, and what's the value of what's in production. Also, you should have a revenue attribution or a time saved attribution too. The error rate and trends, also super important. Active users per system too. And the last bullet was evaluation dataset size. So evals is a big topic, but the main idea behind evals on that specific post is not all those eval startups. It's more, I'm going to ship a solution in production, and this set of examples of queries or inputs is what I'm going to test my system against. Next time I will improve the system, it needs to improve my current dataset. And maybe I can grow it to 100 queries to cover more edge cases as I've learned from production data. And one thing that I think is very much underrated, but very well spoken about, especially in recent talks, is the idea to use real-time production data from users to train and retroactively improve your systems. So it doesn't have to be real-time. And so then you have like the weekly rhythms and the monthly rhythms, where basically there are some information like error, engagement, and blockers that goes on a weekly basis because it shows patterns and momentum. And then you have like the monthly, where you show the new systems shipped and like the bigger overarching goals that are more quantifiable and framed in a business perspective. This is basically how you connect the strategy with the implementation. It's through accountability. So I guess we've done the tour. If those 5 questions that you're seeing here are relevant to you, go to that post or leave a comment on that specific video and I will get back to you. But how would you rank yourself today or your company? So the one is, after your last build, was reusable for the next one? That's the first question. Can you diagnose a production failure in under 5 minutes currently with your company setup? Does your team share learnings weekly? Is your next decision obvious from the data you're collecting? And lastly, are you solving the right problem or just the urgent one? This episode of the week, I hope you liked it. I hope it was fun. It was definitely fun to me. Those are topics that I think continuously about and have numerous calls. I will see you on the next one. Please leave any questions and comments and ideas for next topics and posts in the future episodes, and I will see you there. Ciao, ciao.